Give me a little countdown.
Dojo Outfitter family, what's going on? Welcome back to the show. Today we got Chris Dealy. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Good to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. I have a funny story I want to tell you.
Okay.
Maybe like a month or so ago, you posted a Facebook memory, and it was you teaching class at the old Portland Judo. And it was like a post that Andy put. It was like, oh, my friend Chris Dealy. And you want to know who was in that picture, my friend?
Probably you.
A young chicken bone. I didn't even have a gi on. I had like a cut off tank top shirt and some shorts. And then I started racking my mind. I was like, dude, I
Yeah.
remember this.
How long has this guy been coming to Portland Judo?
Dude, so you were one of the first people I ever met, like in jujitsu, which is like, it
Man,
kind of like blew my mind a little bit.
I think I've been. I'm trying to I'm thinking about it right now. I think I've been training with Andy, Sensei Andy, Louis, right? Sensei Roy. They were in a spot. It was before that one even,
Yeah.
right? They were in a spot that was like right over here somewhere, and I met them at the Five Rings Tuesday night competition team, right? We would go in there and do the comp training. This was probably like 2010, 2000, yeah, 2010, maybe 2009, right? But it's been a decade, since I've been training with those guys, and we used to just, man, I just remember the first memories I had of those guys was obviously they were good judo players, right? And my in my mind, what a judo player was, right? Of course, a good thrower, but it was the physique, right? Because they were both just thick guys, but they had like a six pack on top of the thickness, So just imagine like a big barrel chest, right? But with the six pack, it was like comic book style,
Yeah. Couple
right?
1-2 jack
Yeah,
dudes.
just some big dudes. Everybody's pulling guard on them. Nobody's standing with those guys. So,
I
yeah,
don't stand with those
yeah.
guys.
I
Yeah.
uh, I I got to, man. You got to, man. Like that's how you get better, man. Get thrown in the gym.
No, for real though, the reason that I am good at judo is because I have taken so many like hard throws.
Yeah,
I remember specifically one time I helped with the kids class for a really long time in judo, just because I wanted to learn, I wanted to help, and I remember like the kids were kind of giving like a lackluster performance on the throwing drills, and I'm the only other adult there. So Andy's kind of like scowling at the kids, and he stops class, and then boom, makes eye contact with me, and I was like, uh-oh. He comes up and he's like, this is how you throw someone, and hits me with like an old sotogari, and
yeah,
there's like still like an imprint of like my hand from
yeah,
like slapping. He threw me so hard.
yeah. And at Portland Judo, man, it's not very forgiving either. Like you guys got thick mats there, but you can still feel the concrete underneath. I remember I've taken a couple really hard falls there, and like I think one time, man, like I just really felt like I went through the earth, and another time this was right before quarantine, right? I either bruised my heel or I cracked my heel or something, man, and I couldn't walk right for months, and thank God quarantine came, right? And it finally healed, So I've taken a few falls. The reason why I built the floor at my academy the way it is because of I wanted to be able to train a lot of judo on the mats at my academy, because I've been getting into judo a lot over the last 5 years, and I want to practice it at my academy too, and I want to be able to one day be able to have a judo program there as well, and might as well build the judo floor underneath the mats, like gotta go all out, right? If you're gonna be practicing, so.
Dude, I'm glad that you brought the bass up, because that was definitely gonna be a question that I had, and I know this is kind of gonna be a long answer, but tell me how the bass came to be. Like, how did everything align, and
Now we can go a couple ways with this. Are you thinking like how did my academy the base come to be, or how did the lineage of the base come to
Yeah, yeah,
be?
yeah.
Like
The relationship is kind of.
so I would say, obviously, like I've been training jujitsu here in the Northwest for a long time. I started training it in the gi probably like 2006. Um, Started actually training in the gi in a basement, right, with my buddy John, my buddy Jesse. Shout out to those guys, the original Deuce Chucker crew, right? We would train in a basement Monday, Wednesday. We would train gi, right? This was like after the Team Quest days. I trained at Team Quest for 3 years, right? We can get into that later as well, right? But we would train Monday, Wednesday. We would train in the gi, right? Because I wanted to get good at jiu-jitsu, right? I wanted to start competing in gi jiu-jitsu. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we would train stand up, right? Because my buddy John Ashworth, he wanted to get ready for MMA fights. So like I wanted to get ready for jiu-jitsu tournaments. He wanted to get ready for MMA fights, and we just had like a mutual, you know, cooperation to get ready for this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, like I was training here and started training gi jiu-jitsu under Professor Mel Locke. Shout out to Professor Mel Locke out in Camas, Universal Martial Arts. I was training under him for, I got my blue belt from him. I got my purple belt from him, or through him, from Professor Ryland Lazarus. And then probably about 2012, I was kind of like at a crossroads in my life. And I was like, I had gone through a divorce, right? I had like a falling out, with my ex at the time, and like I was, going into depression in regards to jiu-jitsu. I was like I was a young purple belt, but I was competing a lot, probably like 10, 12 competitions a year, right? And like I wasn't as good as I wanted to be, right? And I was like teaching jiu-jitsu at MMA school, Touch 'em Up MMA. Shout out to Jay and Krista, two real pivotal influences in my life. I was teaching jiu-jitsu at their MMA academy, and honestly, like I wasn't finding like what I needed as a practitioner, right? And I was dating a girl at the time who's now my wife, and she took a job out in Boise, Idaho, and something happened. It was like a crossroads where like, okay, I'm moving to Boise, right? We were kind of at a crossroads in our relationship as well. Like, am I going to follow this girl out to Boise, right? And I had friends out there that were training jiu-jitsu. And I just said, you know what, I need a change, right? And I packed up everything, man. I followed this girl out to Boise, right? And I got offered a job out there doing bar security for a company called Big Al's. It's a bowling alley bar, right? And I was doing bar security, and I got a job doing that. So I had the job. I was chasing my girl, who's now my wife, right? And I had an opportunity to train under a really good, in my opinion, a really good black belt out there, Professor Mitch Coates, who's now still my professor to this day. He's the guy that awarded me my brown and my black belt. And at the time, it was Alliance Jiu-Jitsu of Boise, right? And Alliance Jiu-Jitsu is pretty household name in the jiu-jitsu world, right? So like my favorite, actually the person that that got me training in the gi jiu-jitsu, right? That reason why I wanted to start training in the gi was watching Marcelo Garcia at Abu Dhabi, right? ADCC, and he had an interview on this documentary called Arte Suave, and he was saying to be good at no gi, you got to train in the gi, right? So I started training in the gi, and then saw that there was a connection where like, okay, I can go start training under the Alliance Association out there, right? I know it's a good jiu-jitsu program. Not to mention I had met Mitch, I'd trained with Mitch, and man, just a hammer of a practitioner. There was a lot of really good guys out there, and I started training under Mitch, and I ended up. It was actually a really humbling experience, right? Because I was like, I went out there as a purple belt. Excuse me. Thought I was good at jiu-jitsu, like thought I was good enough to go somewhere and teach anywhere or whatever. And he's like, nah, hold up, like sit down. come here, be a student, right? And I think it was probably about a year, right? I went out there and I was just a student for a year, right? I told him instantly, I was like, yeah, I want to come out. I want to teach. I want to, I want to go win competitions. I want to do it all, And I was like, I want to go win, Masters Worlds or Pans as a purple belt, right? And he's like, why do you care about that, these little titles? Like, the goal is the black belt, right? The goal is the black belt, and to become a black belt a teacher. Like, if you want to be a teacher, then the goal should be to become a black belt, right? And I just had to sit down and kind of look at myself and look at what my goals were. And I'd never trained under a black belt before, right? So I didn't know, right? I was like training under Mel out in Camas at Universal, right? Like, I was still teaching at a program over here in the west side of Vancouver, and then a couple days a week I'd go out and train with now Professor Mel, right? And I think he was a brown belt at the time, right? But like, I trained under Mel, but like I was still kind of like running a jiu-jitsu program myself, right? So I was never like fully invested to being a student. You know what I'm saying? And when I moved to Boise, it was like, sit down, young man. It's time to be humble and learn, right? And Mitch said something. Professor Mitch said something. Shout out the Jujitsu Cowboy, Mitch Coates. Said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, if you ever want to be a leader, you got to learn how to follow, right? You got to learn how to follow somebody and learn their example and learn from somebody that's already doing what you want to do, right? And you got to sit down and take their advice, right? Because it's easy to go somewhere and be like, hey, I want to do this and I want this and I want that, right? But it takes another to be like, okay, what should I do? Okay, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to do whatever it is that you say that I should do to be successful, right? And if you take those notes and you actually, do what somebody tells you, right? Somebody that's already done what you want to do, then, the success and the ability to start teaching, the belts, the school of your own, right? All those things are going to come, right? So I think it was like 2.5 years that I was out there in Boise, and my wife and I had our first child together. I got three boys, three great boys, and so my middle boy, Caden, we had him, and my wife was kind of getting homesick. I was getting a little homesick, right? And we had this idea like, hey, we'll move back to Vancouver and start a school. So like a year before that, right? Like my wife's a real big planner. So any success that I have is because she's taught me how to plan, right? And she's planned it out and made it happen, right? She's all the missing things that I have, right? If I have things that are missing, she fills it in, right? And she was able to plan it all out for me, for us, right? Along with my ambition. And I sat down with Mitch. I was like, hey man, I wanna move back to Vancouver and start a school, right? And he was like, well, you're gonna start doing this. You're gonna start doing this. Start teaching around the academy, right? I started teaching there. I think I don't know if it was like until I was a brown belt or like later in my purple belt. I started teaching there, teaching the lunch class there, and but I think I waited probably about a year before he let me finally start teaching there, and he started teaching me how to do the operations of a school, how to run an academy, and more importantly, some of the lessons that are harder to teach, like how to deal with certain attitudes in the academy, how to deal with like when students are coming in and maybe like a senior student is trying to like make a clique out of try to make his own following in the school, right? And how to deal with all those things and how to make unity in a team, right? I learned a lot of those things from him. Learned a lot of the business side from him. And things that I still do to this day, along with my own learnings that I might have taken from other business ventures or other things in my life as well that I've integrated into how I operate my academy, right? Which is now going on 6 years of operation, right? And even through a pandemic, we've been able to retain over 200 students, right? Like still got a great support from our student base and stuff. And I remember right before we moved home, Mitch was like, "Yeah, we're gonna rebrand as the base, you know, and we're gonna have like a founding group, right?" So there was like me, Mitch, a few other guys, Professor Jacob, shout out to Jacob, a few of these guys, Professor Paul, and some of these guys out in Idaho that were kind of running their own schools under Professor Mitch. And for those that don't know, Mitch Coates is like the only American that was ever promoted to black belt under Alexandre Paiva, GG, one of the three founders of Alliance. He ran the Alliance in Rio, and it's funny now, GG is now in Boise, running an Alliance in Boise, which, you know, we all still kind of cross-train under him, and you know, along with the base headquarters out there, right? It's like there's over 20 black belts that were made under Professor Mitch Coates, and I'd say he still has, you know, I don't know, like 6 or 7 schools that are still kind of operating under the base name, right? Whether it's out in Pocatello or Boise, Weiser, Idaho, of all places, a little small town. Shout out to Professor Toby out there. And then there's a guy up in Ketchikan, Alaska, Jordan Tab, who's runs a base school up there. If you're ever in Ketchikan, trying to go fishing.
Why do they call him the Jujitsu Cowboy?
Oh man, so if you met him, right, you'd understand, right? Mitch is real. He's a cowboy of a guy, man. He, not to mention, he runs a ranch, right? Like he breeds cattle. Mitch is kind of like a jack of all trades. He's not even doing a lot of jiu-jitsu these days, right? He maybe trains once a week or so. He runs a ranch where he raises Wagyu cattle, right? I don't know if you're familiar with.
My man, I'm familiar with Wagyu.
Yeah, so
sure. Hey,
so if you're trying to get
it doesn't look like it.
Trying to get the plug.
Yeah,
you're trying to get the plug, man. Shout out to the Jujitsu Cowboy, right?
I'll grill us up some Wagyu right now.
All right.
Hey, sorry guys, we gotta go for a minute.
Yeah, shout out to the Coates Cattle Company. Look it up, man. He's still breeding cattle. But like I said, you know, he's got his hands in a lot of things. I think he's in his like 4th year, 5th year or something. He's been doing law school for the last few years, man. He's actually going to be a lawyer as well, right? Probably my lawyer, right?
Might as well.
Might as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, he does a lot, right? And he's one of those guys that and I kind of see where he's coming from. He's constantly striving for the next thing, right? For the next
not satisfied,
right?
Yeah.
And I took a lot of that from him, right? Mm-hmm. It's real easy to be to just sit back and be a teacher, you know what I'm saying? I try to live that saying where, like, it, you know, if you ain't following, you know, it's hard to lead. So I'm constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to train with better guys and you know, train with black belts all the time, right? Mm-hmm. I'm always yelling at my upper belts, man, get in here and train with me, right? Like I need you know, I need to train with the best guys, right? So I can constantly raise my level and then in turn raise the level of my students, right? So
did you know Mitch when you moved there, or was it just?
So
I was gonna say that'd be crazy.
No. So it's funny. There was a small connection, right, where I was going out there for probably 2 years prior, every April for this tournament called the Northwest Submission Challenge, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, you know, I guess you would say it's a small tournament, right? But it's a 2-day tournament these days, right? Where they do kids on one day, adults on the other, right? And I would constantly go out there and do that. And I met him through that because my student at the time, Jake Martinez, shout out Jake Martinez, he's a black belt out at SBG out in Idaho now. But he was training here with me at Touch 'Em Up. He was one of my first blue belts, and his brother Jeff trained under Mitch out in Alliance Boise, right? So we had like the connection. He was always like, oh yeah, we need to go out and visit my brother and train out there. He said whatever we're doing is weak sauce. We need to go. We need to go. We need to go show him that we're actually doing some legit jujitsu out here too.
And what's funny is he was right.
Yeah, well, in retrospect, yeah, for sure. Because like you always think like if you're constantly staying in your pond, right? Like, and you're getting good at swimming there, and you're not getting eaten by sharks or bigger fish or whatever, then yeah, you're gonna think that you're the king of the pond, right? But then you go jump in a lake, man. See if you're still the boss there, right? And I think far too many out there aren't doing that, right? And you got to constantly keep yourself humble, keep your ego in check, right? Go seek out training with people that are better than you, and seek out knowledge and train with people that have proven knowledge, and seek out the butt kickings, man.
Hey, that's why I've right now been doing what I've been doing, is because, man, I enjoy it. I enjoy it, man. I enjoy it so much. What made like the competitor? I can just tell, like, just from talking to you, you're like competitive. What's made you compete for like so long? Like you said, you've been competing for years. Like, what like still burns in you is it the want to get better, the desire to?
I view competition as a test for myself, always, right? And like I've found that over the years, like especially like competing in the black belt division, that the pool is so big, right? And there's so many savages in these divisions, right? And I compete in the Masters 2 division, right? These coming up on 40, right? But man, these are some of the toughest dudes I've ever seen, right? Like I think I was a brown belt probably, and I met this guy Marcos Torregrossa. I don't know if you're familiar. Yamaso, shout out Yamaso. One of my good friends now. We talk every week, right? Me and Yamaso, we're in the same division, man. But this guy, he wants to train with me all the time, right? Like I train with him, as often as I can, right? Even though he's in my division, right? I get my ass kicked by him all the time, right? Like probably most savage knee cut in the division for sure. And I learned a lot from him and how he approaches, that competition mindset, right? And the willingness to like, man, if they're in my division, I want to train with them, right? I want to train with these guys all the time, because like, how often are you going to compete with these guys? Maybe once a year, right? But why not form a relationship, right? And train with them, right? Train with the best guys, right? Train with all the guys that are in your division, right? Because then that way there's the familiarity, and it turns into a game, right? Because like, let's be real. We're doing jiu-jitsu. We're not fighting, right? We're playing games.
It is,
right? We're playing games, right? At the end of the day.
You could say it is a game.
Yeah, and like let's go play some Madden. We're gonna. I don't play Madden, but like
you don't want to play me in Madden.
I probably don't.
You do. I promise you don't want to play it. That is the one game that yeah. Anyways,
I view it like that, and honestly, like a lot of it comes from kind of how I grew up. Like I grew up not very competitive, and I grew up quitting a lot. I grew up failing a lot. I grew up stopping trying when things got hard, right? And I learned from how that feels, right? And it's the worst feeling, right? And I don't like that feeling, and I refuse to feel like that anymore in my life unless it's forced upon me, right? You have to force failure upon me, right? Otherwise, I'm not gonna concede, right? It has to be forced upon me, and like I grew up with those feelings of accepting it, right? And it's a terrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling to grow up with that, right? Because you have to live with it, right? No one else quit for you, right? You quit, right? And I got tired of that feeling. So nowadays, like when I go compete, right? Like, yeah, I get anxiety like anybody else, but it's like I want to go try my best and test my abilities, test out my training, right? Because that's all it is. It's like I'm going and I'm playing games, right? Like, if I get caught in an armbar, I get caught in an armbar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tap, go home, practice, try again, right? Go, I get beat by points, suck it up, go back to training, study the film, figure out what I did wrong, and or what the other guy did right, and work on those deficiencies, come back and try again, right? I do the same thing with games too, right? Like if I'm playing video games or if I'm, whatever it is that I do, like I become a severe nerd about it. Totally nerd out on whatever it is that I'm doing and try to figure out all the rules, all the in and outs, right? Who's the best at it, right? Who does what the best? Who's the best at playing X guard, right? I'm gonna study them. I'm gonna steal all their moves, right? I'm gonna.
Hey, that's something that I started doing. And I started doing it like a little before quarantine, but I'd like look up a move and then I'd be like, "Hey, who's the best at this?"
Yeah.
Then nowadays you
Dude.
can find anything on the internet. So I'd be
Man.
like, "Who's the best at the guillotine?" And I was like, "Marcelo Garcia."
Yeah.
Tell me everything.
Ian, we are. You kids, you kids these days are so lucky, right? Like I still have most of the DVDs. I don't have any tapes or anything, right? But I remember back when things were on tape. But dude, like we used to have to wait 4 to 6 weeks to get a DVD from On the Mat in the mail in 2007, 2008, to be able to look up these techniques. And I'm not even like as old as some of these other guys that probably understand when it was on VHS, right? Or they were looking it up in magazines or books from the library or whatever, just be able to find their techniques. You guys can get on YouTube now and
Bro, you can find like you
dude,
can find
there's a ton, but it's a problem too, right? Like I see it a lot in my students, right? Like they'll come to me with a video on something, and I'll be like, and first thing I do is and it might be a bad habit, but first thing I do is I look and see who's teaching the technique, right? And it's like, okay, is it some random purple belt that ain't never competed before, and they're doing it on one of their buddies in their garage, right? And they're practicing against somebody that's not resisting, right? Like, what is the context of this technique, right? And then I'll give it an honest look, right? And I'll watch it again. If it's good, I'll be like, okay, maybe that's okay. Try it against some resisting opponents, like grab a training partner, have them try to defeat it, right? But in most cases, it's like, oh yeah, that's Bernardo Faria, yeah, that's sick, yeah.
We always go with the Bob. Like, would this work on Bob? And dude,
shout out to Bob.
Yeah, what's up, Bob?
Shout out to Bob.
If it doesn't work on Bob, don't even try it.
Yeah,
there's a lot of fancy stuff.
But then
out
again,
there.
like you got to think of it like this, because like, trust me, I know Bob. Bob will do things that other guys can't do, though. Also, right? Like Bob's gonna choke you from inside your guard, whereas everybody else is gonna be like, hey, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't be choking people from inside the guard. You're gonna get armbarred, right? I got another guy, Joe, at the gym. He'll Ezekiel from inside your guard, right? But he's also 6'8" and has really long arms, and you can't extend him away in your guard. He ain't doing it to me, but he's doing it to a lot of the other guys, right? And he's doing it to good guys, right? So there are those asterisk, techniques and moves from certain guys where Bob is gonna squeeze the bread, choke you from inside your guard, so.
Dude, I want to actually talk about your wife really quick.
Okay.
Because she started jiu-jitsu, a couple of years ago, and...
Yeah. So my wife, she was really against training jiu-jitsu for a long time. Totally not into it. Mm-hmm. And then something happened. I think it was because we own a gym, right? And she wanted to start connecting with our members too, right? Like, so she's like, okay, I think I'm gonna start training. I want to learn a little self-defense. I want to know how to protect myself at the very least, right? And she's like, okay, well then, I want to train until I get a blue belt, right? So she put in, 2 years solid training in the white belt and earned her blue belt, right? And she's been kind of off and on since then. Hasn't really trained much in the quarantine, but she trained with me when we were quarantining and all that stuff. So yeah, she isn't one of those ones that has like aspirations to like really do anything with her jiu-jitsu, but she wants to know enough to where she's proficient at it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And has her set of moves, and kind of goes from there.
Yeah. How
So,
did it feel to give your wife a blue belt?
uh, you know, it was great, man. To be able to, it's just like with anything, right? Like for like anybody that has students and seeing them progress and seeing them get better at something, right? To see the hard work be rewarded, right, is really fulfilling. And I feel the same way about my promotions for my boys. Two of my boys have earned belts in jiu-jitsu as well. My oldest son is a yellow belt, going on a solid yellow belt, and my middle boy Caden, he's probably like the talent of the family. He's the one that he's coming in there. He's already like jumping guard, but he's like 7 and like this tall, and he's wanting to play open guards and all this stuff. And it's like, that's fulfilling. Seeing not just like being able to promote them, but seeing them develop their own game, right? Seeing them develop things that they like to do, right? Like, you could ask her, like, she'll be able to tell you her 3 favorite techniques aren't going to be the same as my 3 favorite techniques, right? And then same thing for my boys, right? Like, Christian likes wrestling, right? So he's gonna be a top player, right? Like, he likes to go for his high crotch to double, right? And then he likes to work on his guard passing and finishes from the top. He'll put you in an Americana, right? And Caden likes pulling guard, right? He's going to pull guard, and he's going to, start trying to get up underneath your legs and get around to your back and put you in a crab ride. 7-year-old put you in a crab ride, right? And try to take your back. So it's cool. And then my youngest boy, Carson, he's 5, and he's just happy to be there.
He likes hanging.
Yeah, he's just like, he trains, but like sometimes he's like, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna.
I don't want to train anymore.
Yeah,
today,
I
Dad.
don't want to train. Like, we were, he was training actually. He probably trained for like 4 months straight, and then he's just like, nah, I don't really want to do it. Okay, fine. I'm not gonna force him.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's where you lose kids a lot, is when you try to force them to do things.
Yeah, so that great, because I was just gonna ask. Thank you for the segue.
Yeah, let's go.
I have a young son.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to people who want to get their kids in jiu-jitsu?
So I'll give a little backstory on my reasoning for feeling the way that I do. I was raised by a father who was kind of in and out of my life, and when he was in my life, he would force me to play golf, right? And I liked golf, and I still like golf, but like it came to the point where like I didn't like it, right? Because I was forced to go do. I was forced to take lessons, and like I wasn't a huge fan of it, right? And like, maybe I'd rather stay home and play Nintendo or something, but I had to go golf, and I always felt like the urge for me to do it, like in high school, right? So I played golf my first 2 years of high school, and then my dad went to jail, and next thing you know, I'm wrestling, right? Because it was completely the opposite of golf, right? And it developed in me where I had like a resentment for it, and I never want that for my kids. You know what I'm saying? So like, if I could give any advice on, if you want your kid to train jiu-jitsu, like, introduce them to it, have them do it, keep bringing them around it, right? And let them develop that desire to want to do it, and I'll never force my kids to do it, right? Now, if my kid expresses to me that, hey, I have a goal, I want to earn my gray belt, or I want to earn my yellow belt, or hey, I want to go do this wrestling tournament, which my kids have said to me before, or hey, I want to do the tournament, I want to do the rev, I want to do, whatever tournament's coming up. Dad, I want to compete. Okay, well, guess what? We're going to practice every day, right? Every day, right? Okay, maybe you get 1 day a week where you get to rest or something, but we're gonna work hard for that tournament, for that goal, right? And then the days where they're complaining, I'll be like, okay, then we ain't competing, right? You don't want to go today, we ain't competing then. Okay, well, all right, fine, don't go get in the car, right?
Wait
like,
a second.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, so like, you put that goal out there, well, okay, then I'm gonna hold you to it, right? And I do, but the thing is, like, yeah, for my kids, but I also do that for my students too, right? Like, they express to me that they have a goal, like, hey, I wanna teach, I wanna do this, okay, I'm gonna hold you to a different standard than I do to just a casual practitioner that's coming in just to learn and do a couple days a week, right? You tell me that you wanna maybe start school one day or something. All right, I'm gonna force you to teach. I'm gonna force you to do these things, and I'm gonna be on you, right? And I think that's important, right? Because like all those things that I've had coming up, right? Those influences that I've had, they've been, on me when I start slacking, right? And I think we all need that sometimes. We all need somebody that's like, hey, they're gonna ride your ass a little bit about it, right?
Yeah, it's always good to get a push from
Yeah.
from people sometimes.
Yeah, and what I'll say is this, as far as parents go, if it ain't jiu-jitsu, it's gonna be something, right? Maybe they're like, hey, I want to get good at the violin. Well, guess what then?
We playing violin.
Yeah, we're like I'm not. I don't know. I don't believe in doing things, halfway, right? Like
Right.
my grandfather taught me, you don't do it. You don't do it halfway, right? If you're gonna do something, do it. So.
Dude, tell me about how the relationship with you and JT Torres started.
Oh, I mean, honestly, I think I met JT at his first tournament as a black belt, and I just like went up and introduced myself because I was a fan of his, right? And I was just like, oh man, kill it this tournament, right? And then over the years, just kind of followed him as a fan, right? And studied his game, stole a lot of his moves, right? I saw him again like 2013 at a tournament. It was like the first time he did Dealy X somebody. Next thing you know, I'm doing Dealy X. So I'm stealing his moves and stuff. And then when I opened my school, I was just like, hey man, you want to come out here for a seminar? So I invited him out for a seminar, and he's been doing seminar at my school yearly since. And during quarantine, he did a couple seminars with us. We were going to do private lessons, right? But we ended up turning it into, like a group Zoom seminar, right? And I was just like, man, let's as many people that want to come and dude, it wasn't really a seminar. It was more like him just drilling us on solo drills and kicking our butts for an hour, right? And honestly, I made my students do all those solo drills. They're still doing them sometimes, right? They hate it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's good for you, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so JT's a good dude. I just heard he's gonna be able to open his school back up here this month, so stoked for that. They've been closed down since, right? New York's on lockdown, man.
Dude, it's been crazy in New York.
Yeah, so a lot of these guys that I know through the community, and some of these top guys, like, don't be afraid to just reach out to them. Jiu-jitsu is the only sport that I've ever found where, like, imagine Michael Jordan, you could just like Instagram him and just be like, hey Mike, can I get a private lesson on that fadeaway, right? And he'd be like, sure man, like Venmo me this, right? And we'll meet up. How's Saturday? Perfect, right? Meet up with Michael Jordan, get some advice on the fadeaway jumper, right? Jiu-jitsu is the only sport that I've ever known where it's that easy to reach out to these guys, and for the most part, most of the top guys, man, they're gonna do it, unless it's like Marcelo Garcia, who's probably crazy busy, right? But most of these guys, they're willing, right? Because I haven't met too many that are like at the top of the game that are like huge egomaniacs, right? And most of them are cool. So, and you can go drop in at their school and train. Like, what other sport can you do that?
Right?
Yeah, I haven't seen any.
Dude, let's nerd out for a minute.
Okay.
I seen you playing Magic: The Gathering.
Yeah.
Dude, listen, I don't know a lot about it, but I see you getting competitive over there.
Yeah. Just like with anything, man, I take.
You're going 100% in.
I'm going hard. Yeah. So like, well, since this pandemic hit, they don't do like the tournaments anymore, right? But I started playing that game, I think back in middle school, and stopped, right? And I was just like, oh, this ain't for me, like, because like neighborhood I grew up in, right? You weren't doing nerd stuff like that, right? Selling weed or whatever with your free time, playing GoldenEye or shooters or whatever, doing stuff like that. And so I went away from it for a long time, and then my kid came home with some cards like one day, and I was like, oh, I remember this game, like, okay, let's check this out. Let's get back into this, right? And just randomly, just got a wild hair. I started playing it online, I play it online mostly because paper cards are crazy expensive. Yeah, so enter into tournaments and stuff, and there's actually some big money in that game, man. It's like gambling. It can get addictive,
Oh,
right?
dude.
Yeah, so you can go online, you can play, and before this quarantine hit, I was going and playing. There was these things called Grand Prix, right? And you go play, and there's like 10K grand prize, right? Like you go win one of those things. But the way those tournaments work is like imagine a jiu-jitsu tournament. I think this is the way like ADCC is, right? Imagine a jiu-jitsu tournament where it's like you could be a day one white belt and you can go sign up, but your first match is Lucas Lepre, right? Or your first match is Gordon Ryan, and you're like, oh shit, and like, okay, right? You better come correct, right? Otherwise you get blown out first round, right? And that's kind of how those tournaments are, where it's like everybody's in a free for all, right? Where there's like 1,500 players or whatever, and it just kind of whittles down each round. So I would do that. I've done that yearly, but there probably ain't gonna be many of those anymore,
No,
right?
right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably for the best, man. I shouldn't be
Messing around with all
wasting
that.
my time doing that. I just play it online, but it's fun.
Well, brother, like, I
Kills
just want to
time.
say thank you again so much for coming out. My man, Chris Dealy, check him out. Owner of the base in Vancouver. One of
Thanks,
the
man.
coolest dudes I know. Brother, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Shout out to Sensei Andy inviting me on the show, and to you, and hope you're good, man. Hope everybody's staying safe out
Thanks,
there.
brother. I
Thanks, man.
appreciate that. Dojo Outfitters, peace.